Guys, today I'm presenting you something I personally don't often get a chance to play around with, a soundbar, or rather a complete setup by Creative, including a subwoofer. We are talking of the model Stage V2, the latest addition to Creative's soundbar family. That's why we are looking at V2, version 2. This is also marketed under the legendary Sound Blaster brand. Interesting. Now before some of you click away, stop right there. This setup is not only intended for use with TVs, but for phones, tablets, PCs, consoles, and a lot more too. The sky's the limit. More on that later. The by far most interesting point being the fact that the Stage V2 setup is a fairly affordable universal home theater speaker setup. We are looking at a price of around $110 at the time of this video, which certainly does appear a bit on the lower side to me. Good audio and equipment in general does tend to cost lots of money and can easily drain one's bank account in no time. So do we have to worry about the Stage V2 by Creative, or is this setup convincing in terms of quality at the end of the day? Anyway, if I'm already covering these speakers, I was given the honor to offer you guys, my community, an opportunity to save 10% when buying this directly from the Creative website by entering my discount code Nicholas11. The code does expire though, it's not valid for all eternity. Check the video description if you're interested. Alright, enough rambling, on to what comes included in the box and what there is to expect. Now obviously, besides the soundbar and subwoofer, there also are other things included, such as a power cord, USB Type-C, as well as 3.5mm audio cable, an infrared remote control, and of course some paper documentation. Right away, nope, those two AAA batteries required for the remote are not part of what comes included. Remind me to pick up these types of batteries next time around. Actually, I find the accessories we get out of the box pretty good, although I really would like seeing an HDMI cable included. Oh well, I guess it's similar as with certain monitors. Some brands and manufacturers like to skimp on that one. After all, HDMI cables aren't necessarily always that cheap. So in terms of design and quality, there's not a whole lot that can be said here. Fairly ordinary stuff. That's how equipment of this type is meant to look and be. What matters are the features. The build quality all in all is pretty solid, but one certainly does notice we are not dealing with an ultimate high-end setup. A brief look onto the specs, however, tells us Creative is offering us the land of milk and honey when it comes to features. The soundbar in itself packs an output power of 2 times 20 watts. As for the subwoofer, it's 40 watts. The RMS output then is at 80 watts with a stated peak of 160 watts. Where these Stage V2 speakers manage to impress big time is their range and diversity of connectivity. You not only can connect via HDMI ARC, but also via Bluetooth 5.0, all old school via 3.5mm audio cable, Toslink optical, as well as via USB Type-C. Now, what type of connection would you usually use for which device? Actually, the choice is all yours, but most of the time, we'd choose HDMI ARC for TV sets, same goes for Toslink optical, but also for one or the other gaming console. You'd pick USB for PCs, Macs, and game consoles too, obviously Bluetooth for your phone, tablet, as well as computer. And by going all old school 3.5mm, the sky's the limit. You can pretty much connect any device that is capable of outputting audio. Now, just in case some of you now may ask how that subwoofer actually connects to the soundbar, well, it couldn't be any simpler. A normal subwoofer cable. The subwoofer operates passively and there's no additional power required for that one. What I find to be good, or rather something one would come to expect anyway, is that the soundbar can not only be placed onto a desk or table, but can also easily be mounted onto a wall. All the mounting holes and wall mount brackets are ready to go. On the right-hand side of the soundbar, there are physical controls for us, so buttons such as power, Bluetooth, as well as volume up, down. Quite a bit more convenient and a lot more feature-packed is the remote control though. We not only can quickly switch between those various inputs on the fly, but also switch into 2 different modes, namely surround and/or dialogue. As you'd come to expect, the surround mode kinda spreads out the whole sound into the whole room. Of course, there's mainly EQ trickery going on to achieve that. For instance, those that are serious about their music listening experience probably should avoid that mode. When watching movies though, that's a whole different story, and a lot more feeling and realism comes across. Well, that's what it surely mainly is intended for anyway. Dialogue, as the name already suggests, it amplifies the dialogue voices, mainly by boosting the mids. Nothing over the top though, a healthy dose of everything, one could say. Pretty cool I find the LED display, so we don't lose touch over what kind of mode we are currently in and what things we've turned on and off. Because believe it or not, we do actually get some more precise customization options. For every mode, be it neutral, surround or dialogue, we can adjust bass and treble levels all to our liking, increase and decrease those individually from each other. Now, since I'm not only living a couchless life, but also a TV-less one, I'm going to test today's Stage V2 with my phone via Bluetooth. Unfortunately, the only audio codec supported here is SBC. Don't get me wrong, that one is not bad by any means. And yeah, there's not a whole lot more that I can say at this point. Since many keep requesting it, I'll once again try my best to give you some sort of audio demo listening experience, or whatever you may want to call it. It doesn't really tell us a whole lot, since it comes down to what kind of microphone is being used, the exact speaker as well as mic orientation, positioning. Also, the room is a significant factor as well, along with many more things to consider. Nonetheless, it gives us some idea on what can be expected sound-wise. Needless to say, my positioning of these speakers is not ideal, but let's take a listen in a few different modes along with some custom bass and treble adjustments. Sure, as said, it's a tough job capturing the sound the way one hears it in real life. Because let me tell you, it always sounds miles better in real life than what comes across my actually fairly pathetic recordings. In fact, the subwoofer, for instance, is powerful enough to offer some solid bass performance to make my floor shake a little when at max volume and set to the maximum bass level possible, at least in my specific room. I, for my part, consider the Stage V2 setup sounding best in its default neutral setting with the bass level turned all the way up to the maximum, which is level 5, at least when listening to music. When watching a movie, I would certainly pick the surround mode. But let's assume you're hosting a one-soul room party with you being the only one around, and you happen to wander around in that room, or dance, however you may want to call it, then the surround mode surely fills the room with music far better than the standard neutral mode does. Of course, you will lose some of that fidelity of sound, especially when listening to some heavier rock music and the like. I would like to point out though, when it comes to audio, I am by far not an expert, not a professional by any means. So while you can take my review as some sort of basic guidelines, you should look at other reviews too. There are audio gods out there, and I'm certainly not one of them. Anyway, I really like what these Creative Stage V2 speakers bring to the table. What I especially like is how versatile these are. Almost any device out there could make use of these. Of course, you won't get the biggest, fattest, punchiest and loudest sound of such a soundbar setup along with a passive subwoofer, but when cranking it all up to max volume, they're easily loud enough to make our neighbors go crazy. At a price point of about $110, I find the offered performance and quality to be very respectable. Those that have very little space on one's desk for those chunky traditional speakers could consider picking up a setup like this. Now, if I weren't primarily working with headphones on my PC, I probably would seriously consider going with this speaker setup. So as far as I'm concerned, I can definitely recommend these Stage V2 speakers. With that said, thanks so much for watching, take care and stay strong out there. We can do it.